हेलो फ्रेंड्स। हम अपनी घटनाचक्र पॉलिटी की पीवाईक्यूज़ की सीरीज़ को कंटिन्यू करते हैं। हमने इससे पहले 2 वीडियोस बना चुके हैं पॉलिटी के। सो आप उस वीडियो को कंटिन्यूस देखते हुए आइए। और ये 3rd वीडियो बना रहा हूँ पॉलिटी का आज। इससे पहले कि हमने सारे पीवाईक्यूज़ पढ़े हुए हैं जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डेवलपमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का थे, और फिर उसके बाद एक्ट पास्ड अंडर द ब्रिटिश रूल ऑफ ब्रिटिश क्राउन। एंड नाउ नेक्स्ट हमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली एंड मेकिंग ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस के बारे में पढ़ना है। पहले हम थोड़ा थ्योरेटिक पार्ट पढ़ लेंगे, फिर उसके बाद उसके पीवाईक्यूज़ देखेंगे। Constituent assemblies and making of the constitutions. The first formal demand for the constituent assemblies was made by the Swaraj Party at the conference in Ranchi held in May 1934. The idea of the Constituent Assembly was put forward for the first time in the year of 1934. The Indian National Congress officially demanded after the Swaraj Party a Constituent Assemblies to frame the Constitution of India for the first time in May 1934 at Patna. In 1938, Jawaharlal Nehru, on behalf of INC, declared that the constitutions of free India must be framed without outside interference by Constitution Assembly elected on the basis of adult franchises. So friends, first formal demands of the Constitution Assembly was made by Swaraj Party at a conference of रांची में हुई थी। और ये आइडिया कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली का सबसे पहले एमएन रॉय ने रखा था इन 1934 में, और इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस ऑफिशियली demanded after the Swaraj Party. A Constitution Assembly framed the Constitution for the first times in 1934 at Patna, or in 1938 Jawaharlal Nehru on behalf of INC उन्होंने डिक्लेयर किया था द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ फ्री इंडिया मस्ट बी फ्रेम्ड विदाउट आउटसाइड इंटरफेरेंस। तो उन्होंने डिक्लेयर किया था कि जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया बनेगा वो बिना किसी बाहरी के इंटरफेरेंस के बनेगा, और जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली होगी वो इलेक्टेड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ एडल्ट फ्रेंचाइजेस पे रहेगी। द डिमांड वाज फाइनली एक्सेप्टेड इन द प्रिंसिपल in August of 1940. The Constitution Assemblies was constituted under the schemes formulated by the Cabinet Mission Plan 1946. तो जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली थी वो कैबिनेट मिशन प्लान के अंतर्गत कैबिनेट मिशन प्लान 1946 के अंतर्गत कॉन्स्टिट्यूट की गई थी। Number of the representatives from the province was based on their populations on 1 representatives per 10 lakh peoples. Of these, 296 to be allotted to the British India and 93 seats to princely state. Out of 296 seats allotted to British India, and 292 members were drawn from the 11 governor province and 4 from the 4 chief commissioners province, 1 from each. The representative of princely state were to nominated by head of the princely states. The elections to the constituent assemblies for 296 seats were held in July 1946. The Indian National Congress won 208 seats and Muslim Leagues won 73 seats, and the small groups independents got remaining 15 seats. In the beginning of the princely states did not participate in Constituent Assembly, but with the 3rd session of the Constituent Assembly commencing on 28 April 1947, the representative of the princely state of India began to join gradually. Constitution Assembly was resulted to indirect elections. The elections was not based on the adult franchise. According to Government of India Act 1935, Voting rights were limited was and based on tax, education and property. The Viceroys invited the elected representatives for the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly. On 9 December 1946, 207 members participated in first meetings. The meeting was presided by Dr. Sachidanand Sinha, the temporary president. Later on 11 December 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was unanimously elected as the president of the Constituent Assembly. It, it took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days according to the Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha. 2 years, 11 months and 17 days. It seems that it not included the day of adoptions of the constitutions by the Constituent Assembly. To the complete the task, Constitution makings total 11 sessions on 65 days were held. On 26 November 1949, that is the last day of the 11th sessions, the Constitution was adopted. So, temporary प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर सच्चिदानंद सिन्हा थे और 11 दिसंबर 1946 को डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद को इलेक्टेड एज अ प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली का चुन लिया गया. इसको लगभग 2 साल 11 महीने 18 डेज अकॉर्डिंग टू द लोकसभा वेबसाइट एंड राज्यसभा वेबसाइट के तहत 2 साल 11 मंथ 17 डेज है. इट सीम्स नॉट, इसमें इंक्लूड नहीं किया गया है. जो 26 नवंबर का लास्ट डे था उसको इंक्लूड नहीं किया गया है. इस वजह से जो राज्यसभा की वेबसाइट है उस पर 17 डेज लिखा हुआ है. एक्सेप्ट सो इतने दिन लगने के बाद 26 नवंबर 1949 लास्ट डे था ऑफ 11th सेशन ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस वाज अडॉप्टेड. तो हमने 26 नवंबर 1949 को हमने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को अडॉप्ट कर लिया था. एक्सेप्ट फॉर दीज 11 सेशन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली फाइनली मेट्स ऑन 24 जनवरी 1950 टू गेट द सिग्नेचर्स ऑफ द मेंबर्स ऑन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट्स. बंगाल नरसिंह राव was appointed as the constitution advisor to the assembly. On 26 November 1949, the peoples adopted, enacted and gave themselves the Constitution of India. Some provisions of the Constitution comes into force on 26 November 1949 itself, but it completely come into force on 26 November 1950. The member of the women in the Constitutional Assembly was 15. They were the Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Sarojini Naidu, Suchita Kripalani, Purnima Banerjee, Leela Roy, G. Durga Bai, Hasan Mehta, Kamla Chaudhary, Renuka Rai, Malti Chaudhary, Dakshani Belai Yudhan, Begum Aziz Rasool, Annie Massacre and Amushaminandhan. The interim government of India was formed 2 September 1946. However, it did not include any member of Muslim League. Finally, 26 October 1956, 5 members of the Muslim Leagues were also included in the cabinet. So, interim cabinet 1946. Jawaharlal Nehru, Vice President of the Council's External Affairs and Commonwealth Relations. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Home Information Broadcast. Rajendra Prasad, Food and Agriculture. Dr. John Mathai, Industrial and Supplies. Jagjeevan Ram, Labour. Sardar Baldev Singh, Defence. C.H. Bhabha, Works, Mines and Powers. Liaquat Ali Khan, Finance. Abur Rab Lishtar, Post and Air. Asaf Ali, Railways and Transport. C. Rajagopalachari, Education and Art. I. Chandrikar, Commerce. Janfar Ali Khan held Jogendar Nath Mandal law. So friends, जो थोड़ा से थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट थे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली एंड मेकिंग ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस के, वो कंप्लीट हो रहे हैं. अब हम यहाँ से फर्स्ट PYQs से स्टार्ट करते हैं. हु गेव द आइडिया ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली? फर्स्ट, द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस फॉर इंडिया, स्वराज पार्टी in 1934. The Swaraj Party in its conference at Ranchi in May 1934 presented the policy of the Constituent Assembly. It was to be composed of Indians representatives elected on the basis of adult suffrage. It was the first occasion when Indians demanded for the Constitution Assemblies. Question 2. Who in the beginning presented the idea of India's Constitution Assembly in pre-independence? M.N. Roy. The idea of Constitution Assembly was put forward for the first time by M.N. Roy in 1934. The first formal demand for the Constitution Assembly was made by Swaraj Party at the conference in Ranchi held in May 1934. Who said the Constituent Assembly alone can produce a constitution indigenous to the country and truly and fully representing the will of the peoples? Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi wrote the articles The Only Way in the Harijans of 19 November 1939, in which he expressed view that the Constituent Assembly alone can produce a constitution indigenous to the country and truly and fully representing the will of the people. Question 4. The proposal for framings of the Constitution of India by elected Constitution Assembly was made by Cripps Missions. The proposal for the framing Constitution of India by elected Constitution Assembly was made by Cripps Missions. The proposal for framing of the Constitution of India after the end of Second World War by an elected Constitution Assembly was made by the Cripps Mission 1942. With reference to the proposals of Cripps Missions, consider the following statement. The Constituent Assembly would have members nominated by the Provincial Assembly as well as princely state. Any province which is not prepared to accept the new constitutions would have right to sign a separate agreement with the Britain regarding its future status. B. Any province which is not prepared to accept the new constitutions would have right to sign a separate agreement with Britain regarding its future status. The Cripps Missions was sent by the British government in India in March 1942, which had the following proposals: setting up Dominion status. Any province unwilling to join the Indian dominions could form a separate unions and have a separate constitutions. A constitution assemblies would be formed to frame new constitutions for the country. The assembly would have members elected by the province assemblies and nominated by the princely states. Thus, statement 1 is incorrect. As per the cabinet mission plan, in the Constitution Assembly, to decided to allotted number of seats in each province, one representative was in the ratio of population 10 lakh. The cabinet missions arrived in 1946. The missions proposed a plans for the formation of a constituent assemblies to frame constitutions for Indian unions. The representations of province was based on the populations roughly on representatives over 10 lakh populations. Who among the following persons was not a member of the cabinet missions? Stafford Cripps, Patrick Lawrence, A.B. Alexanders, ये तीनों थे, विलियम वुड्स नहीं थे. ऑप्शन ए इज करेक्ट. The member of the cabinet missions were Sir William Patrick Lawrence, Secretary of India, Stafford Cripps, Chairman Board of Trade, A.B. Alexander, Navy Ministers. William Woods was not a member of the cabinet missions. Question 8. Indian Constituent Assembly was established under Government of India Act 1935, Cripps Mission 1942, Cabinet Mission 1946, India Independence Act 1947. The Constituent Assembly of India was constituted under the Cabinet Missions of 1946 on the basis of indirect elections. Through which plan was the Constituent Assembly was created? Cabinet Mission Plan. In the interim government 1946, the Vice President of the Executive Council was Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, C. Rajagopalachari, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Option A, Jawaharlal Nehru. On August 24, 1946, interim government was announced on the conditions the interim governments would take charge latest by the 2nd September 1946. The Viceroy was the ex officio president of Executive Councils, while Jawaharlal Nehru was designated as the Vice President of the Executive Councils. Who of the following was not a member of the interim national government formed in August 1946? C. Rajagopali, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, Jagjeevan Ram. According to the Cabinet Declaration, an interim government was constituted on 2 September 1946 from the newly elected Constituent Assembly. C. Rajagopalachari was the Education Minister, Rajendra Prasad, Food and Agriculture, Jagjeevan Ram was Minister of Labour. However, Dr. Radhakrishnan was not a member of the interim government. The first national government was announced 24 August 1946. Question 13. According to the verbal plans, the number of Hindu and Muslim members in the Executive Council was to be equals. Reason: Webels showed that these arrangements would have avoided the partitions of India. So option A is true, but R is not true. According to the verbal plan, the number of Hindu and Muslim of Executive Councils was to be equal. In October 1943, Lord Webels, who had succeeded Lord Linlithgow as a viceroy, made an attempt to resolve the deadlock in India. He went to England for consultations in March 1945. There he thoroughly discussed with the British government about the Indian administrations and made some proposals. In June 1945, his proposals were made public by the name of the Webel Plan. He proposed restructuring of the Governor-General Executive Councils, which would have balanced the representation of the main communities, including equal proportions of Muslims and Hindus. All the portfolio except defense were to be held by the India's members, including the Foreign Department. The Webel's plan proposed an equal representation of Hindus and Muslims in the Executive Council. Apart from Viceroy and the Commander-in-Chief in the Executive Council, all members were to be Indians. Earliest possible, a conference at Simla was to be convened. It was also proposed that after the end of Second World War, a constitution for India was to be made by Indians. Thus, it is clear that Webel plan was intended to remove the deadlock of the constitutional matters and political issues and to promote the self-governance for Indians, but never intended to unite the Hindu Muslims to avoid partitions of Indians. Thus, statement is true, but the reason is false. Which of the following statement is or proves the relation of the Constituent Assembly? Assembly was based on the adult suffrage. The Assembly was a result of direct elections. Assembly was a multi-party body. Assembly worked through the various committees. Question C, option C is correct. Assembly was a multi-party body. Assembly worked through various committees. The legislative assembly of the states were used as an electoral college for the formation of the Constitution Assembly. In this way, the Constitution Assembly was a result of indirect elections. Its elections was not based on the adult suffrage. Peoples of the several parties were involved in it. The Constituent Assemblies formed a number of the committees to operate its working. Question 15. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the Indian Constitution Assembly? It was not based on adult suffrage franchise. It was not based on adult franchises. It resulted for direct elections. It was not a multi-party body. It worked through several committees. So option A is correct. A and B. It was not based on the adult franchise. It worked through several committees. The Constitution Assembly was to be partly elected and partly nominated. The Constitution Assembly partially elected and partially nominated. The members were to be indirectly elected by the member of the province assembly, who themselves were elected on the limited franchise. It was a multi-party body. The Congress, the Muslim League, and some independent member also got representations. The Constitution's assemblies appointed a number of the committees to deal with the different tasks of the Constitution's makings. Out of these, 8 were major committees and other were the minor committees. Question 16. Which one among the following is in incorrect statements about the Constitution Assembly? It worked with the help of a large number of committees. The most important among them is being drafting committees. Minorities, communities like Christian, Anglo-Indians and Parsis were adequate representation in the assemblies. It was elected on the basis of a universal adult franchise. Its electoral was based on the 6 schedules of Act 1935, which allowed for a restricted franchise based on tax, poverty and educational qualifications. So option C is करेक्ट होगा इसमें, यही एक इनकरेक्ट है. ऑप्शन भले करेक्ट है लेकिन ये स्टेटमेंट इनकरेक्ट. The member of the Constituent Assembly were elected by the member of the Legislative Assembly of the province on basis of indirect election, not on the basis of universal adult franchise. The member of the province legislature were themselves elected on the basis of limited franchise, that is, on the basis of the qualification of educations, property and taxes. Universal adult franchise enables all citizens to be involved in the governance of their states based on adult suffrage. Question 17. Member of the Constituent Assembly who drafted the constitutions of India were elected by the legislative assemblies of various provinces. Members of the Constituent Assemblies who drafted the constitutions of India were elected by the legislative assembly of various provinces. Members of the Constituent Assembly were elected by the member of the legislative assemblies of the various provinces. Each province and each Indian states or a group of states were allotted the total number of seats proportions to their respective populations, roughly in the ratio of 1 to a million. As a result of 292 members were elected through the province legislative assembly and 4 members represented as the chief commissioner province, while the Indian princely states were allotted minimum 93 seats. With reference to Indian history, the members of the constituent assemblies from the province were elected by the province legislative assembly. How were the members of the constituent assembly elected by provincial assemblies? Who was the first elected chairman of the Constituent Assembly? First elected chairman of the Constituent Assembly is Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Dr. Sachidanand Sinha temporarily chaired by the first meetings of the Constituent Assembly, which was held on 9 December 1946. The Constituent Assembly unanimously elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as a permanent chair members on 11 December 1946. Dr. Rajendra Prasad's name was proposed by J.P. Kripalani. Who chaired the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly? Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. The first day sessions of the Indian Constitution Assembly was chaired by Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected the chairman of the Constitution Assembly in December 1946. What are the true about Constituent Assembly? Constituent Assembly first meeting was held on 9 December 1946. First permanent member was Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. Its first permanent president was Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. Muslim Leagues boycotted the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly. So option A is true. First, second and third. अरे second नहीं होगा, first और third होगा. जो परमानेंट मेंबर ये थोड़ा होते हैं. सच्चिदानंद सिन्हा ने डॉक्टर वो तो राजेंद्र प्रसाद थे ना. Who was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly of India? Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Who was the president of the Constituent Assembly of the Independent India? Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Who was the first nominated deputy chairman of the Constituent Assembly? Frank Anthony. Frank Anthony was the first nominated temporary deputy chairman of the Constituent Assembly. He was nominated on 9 December 1946 by the temporary chairman of the Constituent Assembly, Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. He established all India's Anglo-Indian associations in 1942. He served as a nominated member of the Lok Sabhas for the 7 terms between 1950 to 1992. S.C. Mukherjee was the first President of Vice Constitution Assembly. The Constituent Assembly of the India was established on 9 December 1946. The Indian Constituent Assembly was established with commencement of its first meeting on 9 December 1946. The first session of the Constituent Assemblies began on 9 December 1946 and ended on 23 December 1946. The sessions was attended by 207 members according to the Raj Sabha websites. In the fifth meeting, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru laid down the objective resolutions. The first session of the Constituent Assembly was held 9 December 1946. When was the Constituent Assembly was established? December 1946. When was the first sessions of the Constituent Assembly was held? 9 December 1946. When did the Indian Constituent Assembly meet first meeting? 9 December 1946. In which meetings of the Constituent Assembly of India's did Jawaharlal Nehru laid down the objectivity of resolutions? Fifth, on December 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru introduced the objective resolutions. In the fifth meeting of the first session was the Constituent Assembly, which gave accurate philosophy and guiding principles for the constituents makings, and later on took the form of preambles of the constitutions. When did the Nehru introduce objective resolutions in the Constituent Assembly? 13 December 1946. Jawaharlal Nehru proposed the historic objective resolutions in the Assembly on 13 December 1946. It established principles and foundation of the constitutional framework. The Assembly on 22 January 1947 unanimously adopted these resolutions. It had an important acts on how the Constitution ultimately come to be and all of its later phases. It amendments from serves as a preamble to the current constitutions. The resolutions for giving a constitutions of India was adopted by Constitutional Assemblies 22 January 1947. On 22 January 1947, a resolutions for the constitutions of India was unanimously adopted by the Constituent Assembly, which was presented by the Jawaharlal Nehru on 13 December 1946. सो फ्रेंड लगभग 35 क्वेश्चंस हो गए हैं और इसमें 35 क्वेश्चन 70 क्वेश्चंस थे. हम नेक्स्ट वीडियो में 35 क्वेश्चंस को कंप्लीट करेंगे. सो प्लीज़ लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब द चैनल्स. टोटल इसमें 70 क्वेश्चंस हैं. इसके बाद नया टॉपिक है important committees on the constituent assemblies.